Hello again, my name is Rox. Today, I'm going to be talking about some things that have been circulating around for the past few weeks. In the beginning, this was simply a document posted by Qwel on Twitter, talking about some things I've done in my past. This for me didn't warrant a response, as I've already talked about many of the contents of the document in my second video on this topic from 9 months ago. However, the last 2 weeks, things have escalated enough that I feel the need to respond and make a final public statement on this issue. We have received death threats, spam, and all sorts of harassment that has required us to hire more moderators to manage. This is due to people raiding our server over and over again. This video was also delayed due to a constant stream of new accusations and information that was surfacing on a daily basis, sometimes even multiple times a day. We have been overloaded with tickets and claims made by people. Made worse by the fact that I was hit by a hurricane and no longer had access to my PC for days on end due to a widespread power outage that affected millions of Texans.
Now to the devastating impact of Beryl across Texas. This tropical storm is different. It is still lashing the Lone Star State, and power has been knocked out to millions, and flooded roadways have left drivers in need of rescue.
There was widespread flooding and power outages for almost 3 million customers. In Harris County, 2 people were killed when trees fell on their homes.
My heart goes out to anyone who was affected by this hurricane and anyone who lost loved ones in this storm. And to those sending wishes of death to me because of this document or wishing I died in this hurricane, think before you speak. We wanted to create and publish this much sooner, but it took time to thoroughly respond to everything that has been going on. Before we continue, I must put a warning again for NSFW content, such as talk of sexual content. If you do not wish to see or hear about this content, you have been warned. The first point I want to address before getting to the document is that I am not hiding anything. There have been many people claiming that we are sweeping this under the rug and hiding the situation. I have been open about this topic and I have discussed it for years and have made multiple publicly available videos on the subject. These claims stem from us banning or muting people on our server, as we've had people join our server just to call me a pedophile or even just post the link to the document directly. We do not allow this doc to be posted, not because we are trying to hide anything. It's because the document contains sexual content. Our server is family-friendly, and sexual content is not allowed and never has been. We've also been happy to discuss this through our ticket system, and we have never banned anybody for using that system to ask us about any of this or discuss these subjects directly with me. The only time we've ever banned users using this system is when they were antagonizing or harassing me directly, or not taking the situation seriously and ignoring anything I said to them. We have received an enormous amount of tickets and have responded to every single one. The idea that we're hiding anything is absolutely untrue. Even at the time of posting this video, I encourage you to reach out to me directly through the ticket system in our Discord server. I have nothing to hide, and I am open to discussing the situation. Without any further delay, I'm going to address some points in the document that I felt were important to clear up and give further information on. The first thing I have to talk about, because it is being spread around the most, is the claim that I groomed somebody in the Databrawl community in May of 2020. Around that time, I recently turned 17, and the person I was talking to was 13. This is the claim that is mainly being spread around by people, and being misconstrued to accuse me of pedophilia. It's worth noting that the creator of the document, Qwel, has publicly said various times that I'm not a pedophile, and does not agree with people who call me a pedophile. Even though Pseudomesh, a close friend of Qwel and person involved with the situation, calls me a, quote, 100% pedophile, which contradicts their own narrative. Adding on to this, earlier last year, around Christmas time, I had sent a personal apology to Pseudo because in early 2021, Databrawl members had joined Pixelbit because they believed that Databrawl and Tower Heroes were considering a collab. Pseudo had noticed that I was in the VC and joined in. I was concerned that they were coming into the server to talk about me and my situation, and was voicing my concerns to Qwel, who was in the VC at the time. I also said some mean comments about the people coming in, not realizing Pseudo was in the VC, and he had snapped at me, and we had argued during the time when we were in VC. Up until this point, I had not apologized to Pseudo, and had also believed he had wrote the document at the time, so I sent him a friend request to tell him how sorry I was for being an asshole to him in that VC, and for everything else. But to also talk about certain points of the document as well as asking if I should revoke certain points of my original video. They seemingly had accepted my apology, saying, "Don't worry about it," and told me to steer clear of trouble. And that really made me happy, that I was able to talk to someone from the situation and apologize to them, even if our conversation was short. Fast forward to now, and Pseudo has joined the people spreading Qwel's document. I was confused as to why Pseudo had pulled this 180 when seemingly everything between us was from my standpoint settled. I checked our messages again, and turns out they deleted their part of the conversation that included them accepting my apology and telling me to keep out of trouble. I would argue that it would be easier to refute that you changed your opinions if you didn't delete your messages, but instead, now it looks like you have something to hide. Back to the main point. The reason I have repeatedly had to explain why I'm not a pedophile is due to people using the doc to justify their claims, as many people use the words groomer and pedo interchangeably. You would know, Qwel. Your friend Pseudo has done exactly that. In the document, they present 5 screenshots that have been circulated around, claiming that this is evidence of me, quote, grooming the 13-year-old. I take issue with this for many reasons, and I want to explain why. First off, I think it's important to define what grooming even means to get an understanding of what we're talking about. Merriam-Webster defines a groomer as someone who grooms a minor for exploitation, and especially for non-consensual sexual activity. Oxford defines groomer as the process in which an adult develops a friendship with a child, particularly through the internet, with the intention of having an illegal sexual relationship. I've taken time to research the term itself, and these are the closest things I can find to a real definition of the word. The screenshots they provide do not show me engaging in any behavior that is remotely similar to grooming. I did not manipulate, exploit, or try to create a real relationship with Buddy. These messages just show me sexting them, or talking about an entirely different person who was only 2 years younger than me at the time. I recognize that these messages are disgusting and wrong, and terribly inappropriate, all things considered, but to describe this as grooming is completely misleading. The other issue with these screenshots is the creators of the document do not show any actual context to these screenshots. They do not show the actual conversations in full, or even demonstrate these messages were sent to the person they claim they were sent to. It is simply a collection of random comments that are extremely cropped and presented as if they're about Buddy. These comments could have come from the myriad of DMs and servers I was in at the time, and due to me being locked out of this account due to issues involving two-factor authentication, I cannot validate myself how truthful these screenshots actually are. Another problem that I noticed going back to old resources and studying them is in regards to the original document that I made a video on 9 months ago. In this document, they present the exact same screenshots that were supposedly between me and Buddy, but the doc they created oddly does not accuse me of being a groomer. I find this very strange, as they had the same exact information as they are showing in this new doc, but the doc makes no mention of me being a groomer. I personally feel the reason they're now using this term is to make their document more sensational, and, I'll give them credit, it worked. But it's simply not an accurate term to describe what allegedly happened between the two of us. To add on to this, the creators of this document got a hold of the friend group I was a part of in 2021 while I was still in Pixelbit. This section of the document claims that the friend group was, quote, mostly 14, and while I was in their words, nearly 18. Guess that's more sensational than just saying I was 17, but alright. I also remember there specifically being members of this group that were either 15 or 16 years old. I don't remember it being, quote, mostly 14-year-olds. The doc shows a series of screenshots which I assume were supposed to add validity to the accusation of me being a groomer. This section is honestly just very puzzling, and I sincerely mean that. They show a series of screenshots where I'm making what I can only describe as jokes, such as me calling a picture of a gooey duck a used sock, or me talking about how Wafer from Tower Hero is a power bottom. These messages weren't targeted at any person. They were not personal questions or anything of the sort like in the Buddy screenshots. It's just me joking about things with my then friends at the time. They also later compare these interactions with the interactions I had with Buddy, which I find extremely misleading as these conversations are nothing alike. They also include shortly after this a paragraph, claiming I was in a voice call with the same people, moaning into a microphone. That was just my shallow attempt to be funny in the VC, and nothing more. It was never directed at anyone, and as mentioned, I just did it for laughs. I'm sorry to those who were in said VC and were made uncomfortable at my attempts of humor at the time. The next thing I want to address is the artwork I drew while I was in the group earlier in 2021. I want to acknowledge this art here again, even though I directly acknowledge it in my first video in answer to allegations. I have never denied making this art, particularly the image they show that was cropped in a message exchange. I want to say that yes, I did create this image, and for many years I have regretted it as a terrible mistake. It's a disgusting drawing that should have never been created, and even though I was influenced by the people around me who drew these characters in the exact same way, it is still not an excuse for what I did. I am terribly sorry for ever creating this drawing, and it will never happen again. A smaller point I want to add is the way in which the creators of the doc represent what happened to me in the fighting server. I originally claimed that the owners of the server did not hear me out and shadow banned me, forcing me to telephone through my friend to reach them. The creators of the doc spin this, saying that they, quote, did hear me out because they talked to me through a friend. I don't consider this accurate. If the admins of that server sincerely wanted to hear me out, they wouldn't have handled it the way they did. They wouldn't have just immediately banned me without warning, or refused to have an actual one-on-one conversation with me. Another small thing is that Qwel claims that I left the Pixelbit Discord server on June 22nd, 2021. This is not true. I was banned from the Pixelbit Discord, and even Gary confirms this in a video posted by Duck Adam.
Leading to J-Curse's ban at the end of the month when solid concrete proof is shown.
It's ironic that a page called The Truth depicts information that isn't actually true. A point the creators of the document repeat over and over again in different parts of the document is that I didn't share with the community what I have done, or that I have not shown their side of the truth. This just doesn't make sense. I have made an entire video on their document 9 months ago, where I directly link their document, a video that has been publicly available on my channel. This video has nearly 3,000 views at the time of writing this. I absolutely shared your side of the story. I am sharing your side of the story right now by making this video, a video you publicly claimed we would not make. You were wrong. Now I want to talk about bias. We've mentioned this before, discussing how we think Qwel is a biased source of information. They've addressed this, stating, what's the point of mentioning a potential bias? This is a complete non-point to try to discredit the document. It is stunning to me that the main creator of this doc thinks that a potential bias the writers have is a non-point. An author of what is essentially a cancel document, having biases towards the person they are making their doc on, can have real impact on their decision-making judgments of said person, like calling me a groomer. The most obvious example of bias is apparent in Qwel's open association with Duncan Dunclub of Slam Dunk Studios. Duncan is the creator of Roblox game Data Brawl, and Qwel, along with Pseudomesh mentioned earlier, are both developers in Slam Dunk. Duncan is no stranger to controversy, as he was embroiled in drama back in 2018 and 2019 in regards to interactions he had with a user called Maya, and for running a secret alias account called Big Wiggles, which created Roblox Rule 34, also referred to as RR34. Duncan was at least in their early 20s during this time. As far as I can see, Duncan met this person named Maya in 2017 in a game called Roblox Odyssey. According to Duncan himself, Maya initiated conversations with him about Roblox Rule 34 after being convinced that he was in fact the same person as Big Wiggles. Duncan, for whatever bizarre reason, assumed Maya was an adult, despite meeting them in a children's video game. Between late 2017 and early 2018, Duncan would engage in creating RR34 content with Maya and engage in erotic roleplay, or ERP, with them. Duncan never asked this person how old they were during that entire span of time, and Duncan invited this person to his RR34 Discord server that was under his alias at the time. The thing Duncan and Qwel used to somehow excuse this is they assumed that anyone joining their server was 18 plus, as their server had a no minors rule. This is frankly silly, as a no minors rule doesn't mean a thing if you aren't confirming the age of people you are inviting, which Duncan did not. This rule is irrelevant, as rules mean nothing when they aren't actually enforced. There's nothing I can see that prevented Duncan from asking this person what their age was, and even Duncan admits himself this was a massive failure in his judgment. Anyone who runs a server with 18 plus content in it has a responsibility to make sure minors aren't exposed to said content. Something that both Duncan and Qwel ignore in Maya's document is a rather important section near the end of page 6. In the first screenshot provided, we can see Duncan messaging Maya, claiming that they'll let her back into the Discord server under the condition that Maya deletes everything about his behavior on Twitter. This is a blatant example of extortion on Duncan's part, where he attempts to manipulate Maya after he was exposed for the behavior that he was engaging in at the time. This is honestly disgusting, and shows at the time he was only concerned about PR and the damage that Maya's accusations could have had at the time. Not only that, but after Maya deleted the tweets, she was still not even let back in the server. And Duncan expresses the main reason he did this is that he was afraid of his own friend Sazy throwing him under the bus. With that said, I don't believe Duncan is a pedophile. I do believe, however, he engaged in some incredibly gross, irresponsible, reckless, and manipulative behavior, some of which he has yet to even acknowledge in his own document all these years later. The reason this is all relevant is because this is a person that Qwel not only works for, but publicly defends on social media. Qwel has never made a document calling out Duncan, but has instead chosen to repeatedly defend him, despite Duncan himself admitting that what he did was wrong. This shows blatant hypocrisy on Qwel's part, showing that if their friends have done terrible things in their past, that they not only don't care, but actively defend them. This is an obvious double standard, and it's impossible to ignore. The last thing I'd like to say about Qwel is in regards to a post on Twitter, where they claim they do not have a vendetta against me or Qwel, and that they would like to, quote, end this eventually. This just doesn't make sense when you can clearly observe Qwel on Twitter responding to YouTubers like Schlep, who's someone that creates videos on Roblox predators. We also have messages of Qwel going on every social media platform they can, such as TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter, constantly making posts to try and spread the document as far as they can. They like to say that they want this to end eventually, but it's obvious from his behavior they want to extend this drama as long as they can. If Qwel wanted this to end, they have everything within their power to stop antagonizing us and trying to get popular YouTubers involved with drama. As for not having a vendetta, this is something that is demonstrably not true. Qwel, you are attempting to cancel me for talking inappropriately with a minor 4 years ago as a teen, while you are friends with somebody who did the exact same thing as an adult, except you aren't even trying to cancel your friend, are you? In fact, you created a doc to defend them. If you didn't have a vendetta against me, you wouldn't be trying so hard on social media to paint me in the worst light possible by dredging things up from over 4 years ago. You are also signal boosting multiple people who have flat out lied about the situation. And speaking of these people you have been supporting, let's move on to the next part of the video. I've talked about the document, but now we need to talk about another person who is coming out and making accusations not towards just me, but also Qwel. This person I'm talking about is Gary, also known as Gekbomb. Gary has released a long Twitter thread that makes many claims about the both of us. Before I talk about Gary's claims, I need to talk about the behavior that he has engaged in prior to this Twitter post being made. On the 3rd of July, Gary was banned from Blushcrunch Studio. This is because after we opened up new moderator applications, Gary joined in the conversation in general chat and began making strange, vague comments about police body cam footage. Because of this, Gary was muted for 5 hours by our trial moderator Joji for discussing inappropriate topics. After he was muted, Gary then proceeded to join the server on his alt, Space Dandy, and continued to try and troll our general chat. We know for a fact this alt is him, so we banned it immediately as ban evasion is strictly against our rules. After we banned Gary's alt, he then proceeded to directly message our trial mod even though he was still muted. Gary then sent him a large wall of text asking him a bunch of bizarre questions. Joji simply replied to this saying, "No thank you," in which Gary then told him to fuck off, bozo. Then Gary deleted his messages that he sent to Joji to make it look like he didn't say anything. And it was at this point we realized it was clear that Gary was in our server just to cause trouble, and due to his repeated actions and harassment of a trial mod, we decided to ban him. It is to no surprise then to see Gary post his Twitter thread only days after being banned from the server. Gary has known us for years, and none of the concerns that he brings up in his Twitter thread were ever discussed or brought to our attention. He could have talked to us privately and tried amicably to resolve the situation, and he chose not to. Before I get to that, I want to mention something. In September of 2022, nearly 2 entire years ago, I sent an apology to Gary over drawing the images of him that I recalled drawing. I even say in this apology that if he does not accept it or ever respond, that it is okay and that is his choice. I was sending this apology because I felt terrible for what I did, and I wanted Gary to know that. Gary responded, telling me directly that he accepts my apology and has moved on. Now Gary is claiming that he apparently wasn't being sincere with me. I had no way of knowing this, and he never brought it to my attention in the near 2 years between now and when the apology was sent. He is only bringing this up now after he was banned from our server, which I find odd. The first claim Gary makes, and which is the most damning, is that I, quote, drew CP of him sometime in 2021. For a bit of context, when I was in the friend group mentioned in my first video that engaged in drawing NSFW, the user I mentioned, which I originally kept anonymous but now Gary has leaked their identity in the post, Octotrooper, was at the time recently banned from Pixelbit Studio. I had reached out to them because of their recent ban because I had felt bad for them, and even more so to learn that Gary personally harassed them after they were banned. To make Octo feel better about the situation, I drew joke images of Gary's persona and another friend of his, one of them kissing, and another joke art of 2 stick figures with vague portrayals of their avatars' heads, locked together to look like they were having sex in a comedic manner. I don't have the images saved personally, but it's nothing like what Gary is claiming it to be. CP. I'm not going to defend Octo for the things she has done to others, but the harassment by Gary was completely unjustified from my standpoint. I don't condone harassment to anyone, especially not to those involved in the situation. But back to the CP point. Gary has shown no evidence that this actually happened, and has not provided the images in question in any form. I am not aware of ever drawing CP of Gary. The only 2 drawings I recall were those 2 previously mentioned images of him kissing another person's Roblox avatar, and that image involving 2 stick figures vaguely appearing as him and his friend having sex. This is not CP. With that being said, my apology to Gary from 2022 still rings true. I am genuinely sorry that I drew that art of him. If Gary does reveal the image and it does contain nudity or sexual content, I am sincerely sorry and I take full accountability. I genuinely do not remember creating CP of him, and neither do the people I know who were involved in this situation originally. Gary also falsely claims that I created these images for the person mentioned earlier, not because I was pressured by the group I was in, but for personal pleasure. I would love to see the evidence of this, as Gary has provided none. In fact, Gary has provided absolutely no proof that anything he said in his Twitter thread is true in any way whatsoever. The real truth is that these images were just drawn to make Octo feel better about being harassed by Gary, and as mentioned, I regret drawing them. I would like to now bring on our friend and staff member, Joji, to recount an experience that they recently had with Gary and his friend, Bob Needs Money.
Hi, my name's Joji. I'm a trial moderator for Crunch Studios. On July 7th around 9 p.m. Eastern, I arrived at the hospital for a routine checkup of mine due to the many health issues I have. These overnight stays are usually very stressful for me, mentally and physically, where I often will have multiple tests run on me, my blood drawn, medication put into my system, and I would have to talk to my care team. These have been happening since September of last year more frequently due to an unsettling diagnosis I got in March 2023. I had breast cancer. August of last year, I underwent surgery to remove the cancerous tumor from my body, and I had radiation treatment for a few weeks before moving on to chemo pills, as my doctor suggested, due to other health issues regarding my cardiovascular disease. I've been disabled for a very long time due to fighting my disease and underlying medical issues, and therefore have become a homebody. July 8th, I had returned home around 11 a.m. and took an hour-long nap after not sleeping all day. I decided to take my medication prescribed for the week as per my doctor's orders and felt very lonely and depressed. For those of you who do not know, chemo can drastically affect one's mood and shift it very negatively alongside nausea and restlessness. Due to this, and feeling as if it would be best for me to keep my mind off of things, after talking publicly in the server about my hospital visit, I decided to go to the Blush Crunch's private chat and see if anybody would like to call and pass the time with me. I had hoped to talk to someone on the moderation team, as in the state I was in, I would not want to talk in a more public call, since I had already been more transparent with the ongoing treatment in the moderation chat than I was in public, because I kept it more vague despite hinting to my treatment before. This is when I met Bob Needs Money for the very first time ever on a call. I thought that perhaps this was a new member of the moderation team, and upon seeing their nickname in the server, I recall laughing about how I myself was an ideas guy. That was about an extent of what I could recall, until what felt like an eternity later, I remember feeling very uncomfortable and anxious. I had come to realize that this person was not someone in the moderation team. Due to them being a contributor, they had access to the private voice call. Again, I wouldn't have felt comfortable speaking with someone in a more public call, so I felt immediately as if I had to redirect their constant bombardment of questions to a ticket. I don't recall any questions, but I remember asking them multiple times to please make a ticket to talk to Rox. I didn't even realize they had left the call when they did. I have no recollection of how long I sat there in the call when they left. I felt taken advantage of, and I felt scared. Me and several other people in the moderation team have been targeted for harassment, trolling, or raids as of late, and I was personally a victim of a harassment campaign that had me doxxed and swatted before in 2020. And so I felt myself get into fight or flight. I alerted Qwel about this person having interrogated me, and I tried to get my mind off of it by playing video games with a close friend of mine and 2 other moderators in a private group chat DM this time. But after a while chatting with them, I had to excuse myself as I felt very ill from earlier, and it was all starting to catch up to me what might have happened. I began to overthink that perhaps under the influence of the medicine from the hospital that I said something I shouldn't have, and that due to me not being sobered on the call, that it would be used against me or the moderation. I was mostly worried that I might have said something personal, like my address or any type of legal information, like my full name. I felt so anxious and upset over the thought that I might have also been the reason that others might be harassed, that I threw up 3 times in a row, and what little food I managed to keep down the last 48 hours came up. I felt miserable. And I ended up getting in a call with Qwel to sort myself over what happened. I couldn't even focus on anything aside gasping for air from my panic attack and sobs. Then Gary contacted our head moderator Mike, claiming he heard the conversation through a stream, which triggered me further into an episode, as I was completely unaware that Bob was streaming a conversation to Gary. Gary was trying to use what I said on stream against me. It got to the point where I physically could not breathe until I took my breathing treatment. Eventually, after finally coming down from my attack, I felt very faint, and I decided to take the evening to myself to try to rest. As of writing this, it is July 10th. My body is still absolutely wrecked with what already was a stressful procedure, being stretched out for a 48-hour personal hell. Once I sobered up on the 9th, I realized the gravity of the situation. They tried to claim that they did not know I had cancer, but they have actively targeted me to try to fish information out of me. And Bob Needs Money specifically joined me on that private call when I was all alone after I talked about my hospital visit on the Blush Crush server. This has genuinely affected my physical health, so much so that it needed to the point where I needed to take a break from most things. Even trying to enjoy things that brought me joy has been painful. What Bob Needs Money and Gary did was predatory and wrong, and I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe it was targeted against me simply because I banned Gary only a few days earlier, as explained earlier in the video.
One fact that we also realized later is that when Qwel asked Bob why he joined voice call with Joji and interrogated them, he claimed to Qwel that he was simply seeing more viewpoints on the issue at hand. This was a bold-faced lie. He joined that call to stream it to Gary, so they could use what Joji said while heavily medicated against them. Shortly after, Gary goes back on Twitter to talk about what he acquired through the stream. First, he states that the trial mod said he was acting inappropriate with minors within the server. I'd like to emphasize that the trial mod Bob spoke to, and streamed without consent, was on heavy prescribed medication, and was obviously not within their right mind. This was not something Joji was spreading around. It was told to Bob in a private staff-only voice channel, as Bob initiated the topic of conversation. Gary also claims that a different staff member stated to him that he is a danger to the integrity of the server. We are not certain if the staff member said exactly this, as Gary has once again provided no evidence for a single word he's saying. However, me and Qwel agree that Gary genuinely is a danger to our server, not because he's exposing the quote truth, but because his misinformation campaign has had serious repercussions on our server and the mental health of our entire mod team. He also claims that he can't show the art that he is claiming is CP, because in his words, he won't show it due to quote safety and integrity purposes. How ironic that somebody who is claiming they are acting with integrity has shown no signs of doing so. Having integrity means showing truth and telling the honest truth. Having integrity means not harassing our staff team, especially a moderator recovering from cancer. And on that note, to top this off, Gary later found out this moderator is a recovering cancer survivor and deleted his second thread that we have shown here. Gary made a post explaining why, claiming he had, quote, conflicting information and that he, quote, doesn't want anyone harassing the staff of our server. First of all, you received conflicting information because you used your friend to interrogate Joji and streamed it to you without their knowledge, while on heavy medication. Why didn't you state this on your Twitter? Why aren't you telling the truth to the people following you and believing in what you're saying? Second of all, how can you tell everyone on your Twitter account not to harass us when you yourself were banned from the server for exactly that? And even after you were banned, you used your friend Bob to continue harassing our trial mod. You are no stranger to harassment. In fact, you directly engage in it. At this point, we will no longer continue engaging with Gary, as we have proven he is an unreliable source who has engaged in terrible behavior within our community. I don't mind Gary not accepting my apology anymore, or thinking I'm a bad guy. He has a right to feel how he wants about what I did, but I will not entertain somebody who had created so much pain and suffering within our community. One last point before I finish this section about Gary. While we were creating this video, Duck Adam released a video that was voiced by Gary. I thought I'd address some of the issues with the video. First, and the most obvious, is, for whatever reason, Gary narrates this video in the third person, referring to himself as Gary directly, despite him talking about himself.
Gekbomb came. Gary claims that Gary provided it. When Gary was asked if he could...
We believe this was a deliberate choice on both Gary and Duck's part to make it seem like the voiceover was done by some third party merely talking about everything, when it is Gary himself talking about his own case. He even made a statement on his Twitter saying he lent his voice to the video, which makes it even more confusing as to why he refers to himself in the third person. Secondly, Gary finally shows the actual images that he was claiming are CP after publicly refusing to do so in one of his tweet threads. As far as I could tell, the first image appears to be Gary's avatar kissing someone else's avatar, or some sort of placeholder. I am not sure who this is, as I don't remember, or if it even was a person as opposed to a placeholder avatar. The name is censored in the screenshot too, so that's not giving me any clues either. The second image shown is so censored and blurred I can hardly tell what is even going on. A few clues are the text talking about "you are a good kisser," and the fact that the first image shown is referred to as a sequel. I can only assume this is most likely another kissing image, because due to how they censored it, I can't sincerely tell what's going on. All I am going to say is the first image clearly looks like kissing, and the fact that Gary is passing this off as CP is an outright lie. He also makes a claim that I drew a third art of him pregnant and then proceeds to show no proof.
Gary did say, however, that there was a third piece of NSFW Jakers had drawn of him and the other victim, this time depicting them in an even worse scenario where they were pregnant. That image has been lost for a couple years now. The validity of these images' truthfulness can also be confirmed by written admissions of their existence by two other people Jakers got intertwined with during that time period in 2021. Those people being Emerald Kitty, also known as Octotrooper, and Salmonid.
He provides screenshots showing Octo and another user, Salmonid, confirming the existence of the art, but it's a very vague confirmation and only confirms I drew the art at all, and not the existence of the third supposed pregnant art. As mentioned, I believe he is referring to the stick figure art mentioned earlier, but we don't know for sure as neither me or Gary have the image. Even if he did have the image and showed it, the stick figure drawing is not CP. Gary claims at the 3-minute 55-second mark that there is evidence showing Qwel knew about the art before the Pixelbit contributor team.
Additionally, there's evidence that points to Qwel having in fact known about the NSFW he was making before it was fully known to the contributor team. On June 4th, 2021, Qwel starts a DM call with a contributor to vent about her recent experiences with Jakers after she had found out what he had been doing behind the rest of the team's back. The gist of their conversation can be summarized with her living a conflict because of recent frustrations of both wanting to separate from him, but also keep him close at the same time because she was attached to him. Finally, her admitting to having known about the CP before the rest of the team knew. Said contributor went forward with this newfound information to Hilo, and their perspective of Jakers changed drastically following this, leading to Jakers' ban at the end of the month when solid concrete proof is shown.
Gary's narrative totally falls apart shortly after, however, showing Qwel informing Spookiner of what I had done on June 4th, 2021. As Qwel will get into later in the video, their conversation made mention of PR and how potentially damaging it could be to Pixelbit if my art was at the time spread around, so she did not take it upon herself to tell everyone. Hyla was informed on the 8th, and I would assume Spookiner told the other Pixelbit staff members around the same time. Gary's original claim that Qwel, quote, knew about the art in April 2021 has yet to be demonstrated by any evidence. Another small point he makes is that he claims Qwel is, quote, downplaying the drama, calling it petty.
As they have been downplaying the validity of the allegations and calling it petty drama, which brings us to now.
But they show a screenshot where it wasn't even Qwel, but Gyro who called it petty. This conversation was in regards to Slam Dunk Studios banning everyone who was a member of Blush Crunch from playing their games. They never directly explain why they banned Blush Crunch members from playing their games, only giving it a passing mention that it was after they learned about the incident with Buddy. But because of that, over 60,000 members at the time of writing this document are unable to play their games simply because they enjoyed Blush Crunch content. Why would you ban the people you're supposedly trying to protect? The messages of users saying it's petty were saying that out of their own merit and not anything we said. Any way you spin it, banning an entire group of people who had no involvement in the drama whatsoever from playing your games is misguided and confusing at best, and malicious at worst. They make no mention that the people calling the ban petty was about the banning of the group, and instead skew it into them calling the situation petty. The last thing to mention is that Gary, while admitting that there is no evidence of me acting inappropriate for over 3 years now, claims it was, quote, highly problematic of Qwel to allow me to work on our projects with her.
Since that point, Jakers has not been seen acting out in a predatory behavior. Unfortunately, the way in which the both of them handle extremely sensitive information, much like the document, is very problematic. Qwel, knowing that her friend Jakers was a person with a very problematic past on Roblox and had been intertwined with accounts of Drawn CP and NSFW in 2 separate communities, enabled him to stay on the platform to make games with her. This, by itself, is one of the most irresponsible choices she could have made, since this is still relevant now because it was never resolved, like they said it was.
His main point is that the drama is not resolved, as if Qwel somehow has control whether this drama is concluded or finished. He makes the same tired old claim of, quote, sweeping it under the rug, despite me making 2 entire videos addressing it already. Gary admits in this video that I have had a good record for years now, but insists that's because of everything that happened when I was 17 years old, that it is, quote, problematic for me to be on the Roblox platform. This, for me, highlights the main issue for all of this, that these guys refuse to let go and move on from something that happened so long ago. Despite my apologies, my track record, which he himself admits is good, and my multiple videos openly addressing the situation, including this one, he still insists on dragging this stuff out as long as he can. With all of that said, it's time for me to move on to my next topic. Now, I will talk about Duck Adam, and why we made the choice to ban him from our server and our games. Many people have claimed the reason we banned him is simply because he, quote, talked about the drama, including Duck himself on his community post. This is far from the truth. On June 19th, 2024, Duck Adam posted a YouTube video called Furry Tower Heroes, which, from an outward glance, just appears to be a review of our video game Flavor Frenzy. However, in this video, Duck repeatedly calls me a pedophile and a groomer. He also shows extremely sexual messages from the Google Doc in his video.
Flavor Frenzy was released and developed by Qwel and everyone's favorite Jackers.
Are you a pedophile?
I find it so funny that on the channel with the Flavor Frenzy original soundtrack, there's also just 2 response videos. Jackers did some really weird shit like drawing some nasty stuff of minor characters and also being really weird around like a 13-year-old talking about a 15-year-old. Like, how many times have you diddled your pickle? Which is, you. And he didn't just do this in the Tower Heroes community, but a lot of it was in the Data Brawl community, which is disgusting. And to sum it up, he did some horrible vent art, which I think is hilarious.
I will never get over the pain of what you did to my son. I forgive you, because I believe you are sick and in need of help.
The issue is, this video contains no NSFW warning within it, and there is no NSFW warning in the title of the video. Duck Adam has recklessly exposed over 7,000 people, most I would imagine to be minors, to sexual content without any warning at all. This is extremely careless and irresponsible, especially for a channel that markets itself as kid-friendly/family-friendly content. Because of this video, in a past video that he uploaded a year ago where he also repeatedly called me a pedophile and a groomer that has been since taken down, we made the choice to ban him from our Discord server and games. After we made the choice, Duck Adam made a community post stating that he was banned for, quote, talking about the drama, which is absolutely untrue. He was banned for carelessly exposing minors to sensitive material, and for spreading misinformation about me. In fact, even the document he is using as a source agrees with us that him calling me a pedophile was misinformation. Duck did try to appeal the ban on June 24th, however, we did not accept his appeal. Duck claims in his ticket that he meant no harm, yet he made a mockery of the situation by filling the video with memes, calling me a pedophile over and over again. He also claimed that he thought it was concerning to, quote, have in a game targeted at children, but nothing that has happened has anything to do with Flavor Frenzy. We published that game 2 years after the incident with Buddy occurred. Duck Adam could have contacted either me or Qwel prior to making the video to talk about us with the situation, so he could get the, quote, bigger picture in his own words, but he did not do this. Duck Adam, 2 days later, hosted a live stream called Dandy's World Ban Speedrun, in which he knowingly and intentionally evaded our bans. Not only is this obviously against our rules, but as far as I'm aware, violates Roblox's terms of service. Duck Adam hosted his stream, antagonizing and mocking us, saying over and over again that he doesn't care, and continued to make alt accounts on the stream live. Of course, we continued to ban his alts, and will continue to ban any account he uses to bypass our bans. What's also important to mention is, in the ticket, Duck seemed to be remorseful and just wanted to talk to me, but judging by his behavior here, it's clear that it was all a lie and he wasn't being sincere. Duck Adam then decided to make another video on July 2nd to give his side of the story. His first main claim is that his video was not done in a harassment or exploitative way, yet I think him calling me a pedophile over and over again speaks for itself. Most of the video is just footage from his livestream edited and condensed to where he talks about our game, and I don't have any issues with this, so there really isn't much substance to respond to here. Not long after this, he attempted to add me on Discord out of nowhere. I plainly did not accept his friend request as I felt he was just trying to farm more content off of me. There is one other detail I need to mention. We noticed on our server that when Duck posted his original video on Flavor Frenzy and his live stream, that we saw an uptick in users posting the doc, calling me a pedophile, etc. We were suspicious that this activity was coming from Duck Adam's community. However, we don't even need to speculate, because Duck Adam himself stated in his livestream that his Discord server users were in fact raiding our server and getting banned.
Oh my god, a lot of people in my server. Oh no. Oh shit. I think people actually have tried raiding the fucking Flavor Frenzy server now.
Duck Adam doesn't say anything to his users to discourage them, and seems to have no problem with his community raiding ours. It's apparent to us that he's okay with his users raiding us, posting videos and streams to provoke us, and so on. Duck Adam's community is a space of negativity and toxicity, where him and his users openly spread the doc to unsuspecting users, and brag about raiding us in Duck's stream chat. Duck Adam at this point has created 10 alt accounts to evade our bans, and during his second live stream, we issued an IP ban on his account. We are not going to continue engaging with this person, and he will not be unbanned. It is fine to make mistakes and get facts wrong in a video, and we are totally open to hearing a person out and explaining our side of the story. It is, however, not okay to do everything else that this person has done, such as ban evading, publicly accusing me of pedophilia, and much more. These are the reason he is banned, not for discussing the drama. And with that, it's about time I let Qwel speak about her experience with the situation, as she has been unfairly dragged into it, and now has been affected dramatically by it.
Hi, my name is Qwel, and I am the owner of Blushcrunch Studio. There have been some accusations made towards me by both Gary and a person who goes by Tom. Gary made a series of tweets about his experience with Rox in 2021. I want to address some of the things he's said about me. Gary claims in his Twitter thread that I was aware of the art that Rox was creating in April of 2021. I had no idea where this is coming from, and this just isn't true. As we were reviewing the document on Rox, we came across a series of screenshots that are meant to prove I knew about the CP for months and didn't act. Not only do these screenshots not prove it, but those screenshots aren't even me. The first screenshot is of me contacting a Pixelbit contributor, but these two smaller screenshots are not. Notice how they don't show my username or profile picture? That's because those messages are not me. They are the reaction of the Pixelbit contributor I was speaking to, named Spookiner. In fact, when I became aware of the art, I went out of my way to have a voice call with Spookiner, to vent about the art that was getting leaked and explain to him what was going on. I was not hiding this art, and when I became aware of what was going on, I contacted somebody on the Pixelbit staff team. These screenshots have been cropped in a misleading way, and the only person who has access to the conversation is Spookener himself, a contributor at Pixelbit and a personal friend of Hilo. When Gary posted his original thread on Twitter, I learned the same day I was banned from Pixelbit Studios. I was given no warning, no reason, no explanation. I did not have a conversation with any staff prior, and I was shadow banned. To this day, I have zero idea why they did that, as I was a contributor for over 4 years and created a large amount of content for them. Now it seems to me one of the staff members is sharing extremely misleading screenshots to damage my reputation even further. Not only that, but when Spookener and I were discussing what to do, Spookener was extremely concerned about PR and wanted this to stay under the wraps and fear that Pixelbit will never hear the end of it. I trusted him to make the right choice and inform other people about the situation, as I was 16 at the time and didn't know what to do in such a stressful moment. It's also worth noting that Hilo was aware of what Rox was doing on June 8th, 2021, but decided to not act on it at all until Rox was banned on June 22nd of 2021. This was prompted because people in Rox's old group posted his art in the media section, which caused a large public controversy. Spookener told me he only wanted him demoted. These screenshots in no way prove I knew about the art and kept it a secret for months on end, as half of the screenshots are not even of me. To get back to Gary, he explains later that I lied to him over the course of 4 years about Rox, saying that he has not changed. I did not lie to Gary. I genuinely think Rox has changed and grown as a person since all of these things happened all those years ago. I would not work with him if I did not believe that he's a better person now. Gary, if you are watching this, and I know that you are, if you were not made aware on the 4th of June 2021 that this art was created of you, it is not my fault. I did not keep it from you. The Pixelbit staff team did, as they chose not to share it with you. The other thing I need to talk about is a document made about me by our former tester Tom, otherwise known as Wacko Shroom. The first part of the document talks about a situation that occurred in late August of 2020 when I was 15 years old. I don't entirely remember exactly what happened, as it was so long ago, but the screenshots Tom provides paints a very different story than what Tom himself is saying. I believe at that time, in August, my friend that Tom refers to as Dark Pit contacted me due to them feeling uncomfortable with the things Tom was saying about them in voice calls. We were all young when this happened, and I believe my friend was still learning about their sexuality. As Tom said on Twitter, this person suffers from serious anxiety, and I wanted to help a friend in need. I asked Tom in these screenshots if he had feelings for this person, and at the time, he answered yes. Tom is claiming that his answer was not sincere, but I had no way of knowing this at the time. His explanation also doesn't make sense, as he states that he gave me this answer so that he could get out of the situation. But later on, he shows a screenshot of someone he claims is my friend making fun of him later in 2021. I do not even remember who this friend is because of how selective the screenshots are, but I am not responsible for what they said. Tom claims I had, quote-unquote, no authority to get involved, but all I was doing as far as I can see was helping my friend. He also claims I, quote-unquote, made him apologize to my friend, but shows no evidence. I also want to say that these were all private messages to Tom between the two of us. I was not publicly shaming him for what he did. Tom explains that despite all of this happening, in April of 2022, I invited him to be a tester for my game. I did this because I didn't see Tom as anything more than a friend that I could trust to help me test my game and find bugs. Tom claims in this post later on that I scolded him in a voice call for being autistic, which is why he quit as a tester. This never happened, and Tom provides no proof that it did. He also claims I am two-faced in the same paragraph, but doesn't explain how. Tom then proceeds to try and show that I am a racist. Tom's evidence for this is a message exchange of me 4 years ago, stating that my girlfriend at the time, whose name was Yuki, is my waifu, and that I think she's hot. I honestly am baffled why Tom brings my personal relationship into this, and I can't understand how loving my girlfriend and jokingly calling her my waifu is racist. I was 15 at the time, and this was just a joke. Tom also had a section in his document that he later removed where he accused me of being racist for Sparks Kilowatt's skin tone being lighter than it's supposed to be in my concept art, describing it as pasty beige. I assume people confronted him on this, and even he realized his point was wrong, but it goes to show how desperate he is to paint me in a bad light. Here's my concept art. And you can see how similar it is to the official Roblox metaverse artwork that I used as a reference. Tom also claims I am transphobic, and again, he has no proof that I am, only claiming that he heard about a voice chat exchange from someone else. I have been a vocal and proud supporter of the LGBTQ+ community for years, as I myself am a lesbian. In Flavor Frenzy, I created many trans characters that I have openly expressed are trans in the past, and many of my close friends are in the LGBTQ+ community. Tom states as well that I unfriended the person he calls Chic around the time they came out as trans. If Chic is who I think it is, this is absolutely not correct. We just over time drifted apart and stopped talking to each other as much as we used to. It was absolutely not over them being trans, as they came out much later after we drifted apart. He also said that I broke up with my girlfriend of the time because they came out as non-binary, but they came out after the breakup occurred. It was not over that, and Tom is in no place to be speaking about my personal life. It's important to say that Tom seems to be friends with Gary, as Tom has him added on Roblox, and is even endorsing Gary's post that we discussed earlier in the video. Tom even states that he made his Twitter thread because of Gary's post, and as we talked about, Gary has engaged in a lot of terrible behavior and lies that have hurt and affected people on our staff team and server. Overall, I am disgusted to be publicly accused of being a racist, transphobic, ableist person. These claims are seriously damaging and have no real proof to support them. I want to be clear that I am supportive of all races, of anyone in the LGBTQ+ community, and I support anyone of any neurotype. The accusations made in this document are not true and never have been. I will now allow Rox to finish out the video, but thank you for listening to my section.
Looking back on everything that happened, 2021 was one of the most eventful years of my life. Not only because of the situation that occurred, but because that was the year I became an adult and graduated high school. What would have been a triumphant year in my first steps in adulthood were ultimately marred by the mistakes that I've made. The weight of my mistakes and the overwhelming feeling of guilt and despair overtook me, and I had isolated myself from everyone that I knew on the platform. I thought I could never recover mentally from it, and I felt like the entire world was against me. Every word that was said, every person I saw who expressed how mad and disappointed they were in me, honestly felt suffocating. I thought I would never be forgiven. That was until a light from the darkness emerged. That light being Qwel. She had reached out to me after she noticed everything going on and how I unfriended a lot of users, including her. Although I had unfriended her on Discord, I had not unfriended her on Steam, where she reached out to me. Once I saw her message, it made me realize that I could have made the worst mistake of my life. When we first met, me and Qwel weren't close friends. We mostly played games together and just chatted like normal friends do. When she sent me that message, everything changed. I hadn't realized it at the time, but it's more than apparent to me now that Qwel has become an incredibly important person in my life. She was there for me during everything that occurred, and over time, we have become a great team that's allowed us to make the games we have. We were there for each other when anything happened to one another. She gave me the confidence to come out of my fearful shell and to give myself some time to think about everything that happened. I don't know where I'd be without her, and no words can describe truly how much I appreciate her. Thank you, Qwel, for being there for me when no one else would. In other regards, during my time away from the servers I was banned from or had left, I had started collecting reptiles as a hobby as a means of coping with the situation. For the rest of the year, I spent my time thinking back on everything, as the situation in Pixelbit served as a wake-up call to improve myself and take action. About a half a year later in early 2022, I was reached out to by a user who was originally antagonizing me and seeking me out for information on the situation, and eventually, I got the courage to have a conversation with them. When I sat down with them and came out with honesty about the situation, they understood everything that I was going through. That talk with that person gave me all the confidence I needed to reach out to those I've hurt and make amends. That was then, and this is now. I completely take accountability for everything that I have done in my past, every mistake and fault. I look back at my past behavior in disgust and honestly confusion, as I don't know what compelled me to behave the way I did. I am so terribly sorry to those who I have affected, and I promise you that I'll never repeat these mistakes ever again. Because of everything that happened, I am considering beginning therapy to find a greater understanding of myself and to help me heal from these past faults. I apologized to many of the users who were involved directly and urgently asked them to get me into contact with those I couldn't so I could tell them how sorry I was for everything. The realization I had of how bad of a friend I was to many of these people was overwhelming, and to this day I still want to make amends with the people I haven't yet. If you haven't reached out to me in regards to the situation, I would love to get in contact so we can make amends for my mistakes. The best way of getting in contact with me is to make a ticket in our server, Blushcrunch Studios, stating that you would like to talk with me. I will not be accepting friend requests from those I do not know, so that is not the best way to reach out to me, as I have been flooded with harassment in my DMs for the last few weeks. Thank you, viewer, for watching the video. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our side of the situation. You are encouraged to make up your own mind regarding the drama and to hear out both sides of the situation, but please do not attack anyone involved or join those maliciously spreading misinformation. This video will have enabled comments so there can be further discussion. However, death threats and harassments against other users will not be tolerated. We will include in the description of our video a document containing all of our citations and screenshots if you would like to check them out yourself. It is important to note that this is the last video we will ever put out on this situation, and as mentioned, we will answer any ticket we receive about the situation and respond with complete honesty and transparency. Despite everything, we will still continue to provide our passionate work for both Dandy's World and Flavor Frenzy, and any future Blushcrunch project. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and to the members of Blushcrunch Studio, our staff and our wonderful community, thank you for everything.